An expert is warning landlords in progressive cities that when it comes to squatters, the law is not on your side. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over an issue that I have covered multiple times on this channel, and that's the issue of squatters. Obviously, squatters are a huge problem for landlords, particularly the type of squatters who are people who used to be tenants and then decided to stop paying, but now are living rent free up in your unit. You have to go through the whole civil eviction process in order to get rid of them. Okay, so we're not talking about somebody who's just been trespassing in your property after they broke in. I'm talking about the people who used to be tenants, okay, in particular. But regardless of how they ended up squatting in your property, it's an absolute nightmare. And getting these people out is just the first part of it, because they usually do so much property damage while they're in there that you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars repairing the place after you get them out finally, okay? So yeah, this is an issue that has affected a lot of landlords. It's one of my greatest fears, having a tenant who destroys my property. I have had my place torn up before by a non-paying tenant who I considered to have been a squatter. So, it's absolutely crazy to think that, hey, the law, it protects these tenants because, we don't want them to be homeless, but at the same time they don't give a darn about the landlords and the financial troubles that we're going through. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Have you ever dealt with a squatter in your property? And I'm talking about any kind of squatter, be it a tenant who stayed in the property for a long period of time without paying rent, or be it a person who broke into your property and was trying to live there without paying you anything. I'm just curious how many other landlords have experienced these problems. I'm pretty sure most of us have. Okay. So, anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. This article is coming from foxbusiness.com, and it says, expert warns landlords over progressive policies allowing squatters wreak havoc. The law is not on your side. Data shows 5.1 million U.S. households are behind on rent as of May 2023. And, this is a pro landlord article. Very rare to see that sort of thing, but obviously it's coming from Fox Business, so they lean a little bit more conservative. So it's good to see that landlords and people who have property rights in mind are being interviewed more often. So let's get into it. Step through a door. Step through the doors of a house that's just been vacated of squatters, and you might be shocked at the property's condition. Anchor Realty co-owner Walter Lapidus recently regained a Philadelphia area home with multicolored graffiti walls, makeshift beds, and trash covering the floors. This is how we found the place once the tenants were locked out by the sheriff, Lapidus told Fox Business Jeff Flock on Barney and Company Thursday. After Lapidus' tenant signed a year-and-a-half lease but only paid 2 months' rent, the property manager claimed he's been left with an expensive mess to clean up, as well as significant legal fees after the squatter's stay. Yeah, and this is pretty common, okay? So, especially when you're dealing with low income housing in inner city areas, when you have tenants who don't pay the rent and, they yeah, avoid you, they try to, drag out the process, etc., and they will tear your place up, okay? They have no respect for the amount of money that you put into this property. They don't have any respect for you at all. They see you as the bad guy for trying to remove them from the property, even though they weren't paying rent, okay? They are perpetual victims in this story. And this is something that you see with a lot of bad tenants, okay? They have this victim mindset. Oh, everybody's working against me, but they never want to take a look in the mirror and say, well, what did I do wrong? Okay. And what they did wrong in particular is they didn't pay the rent. They also tore the property up, but that's a separate issue. So anyway, let's continue. What I think people fail to see is that in the attempt to help people who are facing homelessness, which is an obviously very important mission, these costs, the cost of cleaning this up, are passed on to folks who pay the rent on time. And that's how we lose the affordability in housing Lapidus said. And he's absolutely correct about that. Okay. When landlords such as myself, when we face, extreme expenses in order to repair properties, when we face, extreme costs when it comes to evicting and removing a tenant, and we lose a lot of money due to lost rent, well, that's reflected in how much we are charging rent. Okay. So that's why when you go down to areas that are in the inner city, in rough parts of town, the rents can be just as high as in nice parts of town, because those landlords are, they have to inflate their price to assume the risk of dealing with those specific tenants. Okay. And that's just a fact. If you want to have lower priced housing, well, we can't have tenants tearing properties up. We can't have super strong eviction protections. We have to add those things into our costs, because we know we might end up with a tenant in our property and we lose a full year's worth of profit or more. Okay. And just with one bad tenant. And how long is that going to take to make up? I mean, this is the stuff that people don't realize. This is a business. This is not a charity. And how many times do I have to say that? This is not a charity. We don't want to make people homeless, but at the same time, the responsibility for making sure that they stay housed is on them. It is not on us. Our responsibility is taking care of our properties and following the law, okay? Operating our businesses according to the law. Their responsibility is making sure that they keep paying their bills so that they don't end up homeless. So stop blaming landlords for the homelessness issue. It is the responsibility of the person, not the landlord. According to Madison Ventures managing director Mitch Rochelle, real estate markets in cities like New York City, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles could face an exacerbated squatter problem. In New York, squatters are granted rights after just 30 days, which makes it harder to evict. It's a similar story in Los Angeles, where landlords are often forced to pay just to get rid of tenants who fail to pay. And in Philadelphia, even after a court orders a person out of a home, sheriffs might show up to evict but end up leaving rather than cause a confrontation. And this article actually has some pictures here of property that was damaged by squatters, and the pictures look familiar, like I might have posted them from a different squatter story that I had. I'll throw it up on the screen, but this is the sort of damage that you might see from squatters. Not to mention like a hoarding mess. Like if you see just trash everywhere. People have abandoned animals in homes. It is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And you have to spend thousands or tens of thousands in some cases to repair all of this. So why do they make it so difficult for us? Okay. It boggles my mind that they would think, hey, we're the bad guys in the situation. We made these people homeless. No, we didn't. Okay. These people, they didn't follow the contract that they signed, and they didn't pay the rent on time like they promised they would. The laws are written to protect the tenant, not the landlord, Rochelle told Fox News Digital Thursday in reaction to Flock's report. The local laws that protect tenants at the expense of landlords have fueled this phenomenon because we've basically said forever it's the landlord's fault, not the tenant's fault, if the tenant can't pay. He further warned landlords, the law is not on your side. Rent debt in America hit a reported 10.8 billion dollars as of May 2023, with 5.1 million U.S. households behind on their rent bills, recent data from the National Equity Atlas shows. Rochelle pointed out that while tenants were told they didn't have to pay rent during the COVID pandemic's height, no one was giving landlords a break on their mortgage payments. And nobody was giving landlords a break on their property tax bills. No one was giving us a break on our insurance payments. Nobody was giving us a break on our utilities, our maintenance, our capital expenditures, or anything else. That is exactly why the eviction moratoriums were dead wrong, and they should have never had them in place in the first place. So now, after all of that is said and done, we are expected to, jump through all these hoops to be able to remove tenants. We are expected to deal with squatters tearing our properties up, and they don't want us to make a profit at all. So many cities now are trying to pass rent control laws and make it even harder for us to operate. So should they be surprised that there is a lack of housing out there? No, they shouldn't, because they created the problem. They created a situation where landlords don't even want to have to deal with this, so they're just getting out of the business. That's why there's an affordable housing shortage. That's why developers aren't building, because they realize, hey, we're not going to be able to make a profit. If we're not able to make a profit, there's no reason to build. There's better places to invest our money. And so, yeah, this is going to be a crisis for a long time. So hopefully, if you're a landlord out there, you've dealt with squatters, you've dealt with these issues, then, you're hanging on. But, I can understand, and I completely sympathize with those landlords who just decided, hey, I'm throwing up my hands. I'm giving up. I'm done. I'm getting out of this business. It is not for me.